Hello, and thank you for joining us. Today we're here to discuss technology and innovation as it relates to business growth and sustainability, while also addressing the challenges faced by women-led businesses during this unique time. Part of this relates to the Scotiabank Women Initiative, a comprehensive program helping women take their businesses to the next level through access to capital, mentorship, and education. The program is continuously evolving and identifying new, improved approaches to provide practical and accessible solutions to women-owned and women-led businesses, including webinars like this, one to respond to the needs of diverse entrepreneurs. My name is David Rosen, VP and Head of Scotiabank's Technology and Innovation Banking Group, where we help technology founders realize their growth ambitions and drive enterprise value through flexible capital for any stage. I'm joined today by Gillian Riley, CEO and President of Tangerine Bank and the executive sponsor of the Scotiabank Women Initiative. I'm also joined by Jennifer Tejada, CEO of PagerDuty. Welcome. Gillian, can I turn it over to you to tell our participants a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, David. And hi, Jennifer. Great to be here today. I think this is a really exciting initiative, a really exciting conversation. I have been 26 years at Scotiabank in various roles. My most recent role, as you mentioned, is President and CEO at Tangerine Bank, which is a subsidiary of Scotiabank, and it's Canada's leading digital bank. And I'm also the executive sponsor, as you mentioned, of the Scotiabank Women Initiative. We're pretty excited about this program. We put it together some 18 months ago, and our aspiration is to become the financial institution of choice for women-led businesses in Canada. And we're looking to take this into some of our other markets across Scotiabank. We're looking to deploy in Canada $3 billion of capital to women-led businesses to help them start, grow, and build their businesses. And to date, we've worked with thousands of women through mentorship and education and support, and we're really excited about the next stages of the program. So looking forward to the conversation today, David.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Jennifer, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Please introduce yourself, and please also be sure to tell everyone a little bit more about PagerDuty.
Well, thank you, David and Gillian, for having me. I really appreciate it, and thank you for being a terrific PagerDuty partner. So as David mentioned, I'm the chair and CEO of PagerDuty. We're a public company traded on the New York Stock Exchange. We're a native cloud software as a service company that helps developers and individuals manage unplanned work, meaning incidents or issues that might arise in your technology that make it hard for you to deliver the best possible customer experience to your end customer. And we do that by using 10 years of data and artificial intelligence and machine learning to help teams detect issues, triage those issues, resolve them, and manage them before a customer even feels pain. We work with almost 60 of the Fortune 100, 9 of the Fortune 10, and some of the most well-known and loved brands that you as consumers probably engage with. But we also work with some of the most innovative startups in the world. And we are very dedicated to inclusion, equity, and diversity as a company, and also as a leader for change in the tech industry itself. So I'm really excited to be here to speak with all of you today.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Gillian, I'm going to open up our questions today by asking you, you've been the president and CEO of Tangerine Bank for almost a year and a half. How much would you say of your success is a result of your ability to pivot and adapt to change by leveraging technology? What role does that play?
Well, being Canada's leading digital bank obviously means that technology is a huge part of our operation. And so as the COVID pandemic started in earnest in the middle of March, we were able to pivot quite easily because we were already digital. We had the technology to support our clients and to be able to support their transactions. There was a lot of activity, of course, and we were able to adapt to that very quickly. And I think that our team was also incredibly resilient in being able to build and manage the operations in a very fluid environment. And I would attribute the success a lot to the team and their ability to really manage during that time and feel confident and have the ability to pivot, make decisions quickly in a simple, straightforward manner, which really helped our operations be successful through that period. And as I see it, we're sort of in a phase 2 right now of this pandemic and continue to be successful leveraging these same things. So the ability to pivot and adapt, to your question, is crucial. And I think we've been able to do it very well because of the team and their commitment and their resiliency.
Jennifer, can you talk a little bit about how much you've been able to accomplish from a tech and innovation perspective in a short period of time in response to COVID? And I'm just wondering about things that previously may have taken years, you were able to accomplish now in only a few months.
Sure, and we've also seen some phenomenal things happen across our customer base as well. I mean, it's been really interesting to see 100-year-old companies become e-commerce companies overnight, or people who had historically relied on supply chains have to very quickly think about how they're going to manage inventory, or some of our retail customers that had to move to curbside service and e-commerce quickly. So it's actually been really an interesting intellectual challenge to sort of understand how these business models are morphing. At PagerDuty, we were somewhat fortunate that 20% of our employees were already remote. So when we made the decision early in March to send our employees home, really out of an abundance of caution, they were able to sort of shift to a 100% remote organization overnight. And if you had asked me 6 months ago, how long would it take for us to go from 20% to 100% remote, I would have said probably years, at least quarters, if not years. So very quickly, we sort of picked up what we were doing and took it into our homes and our lives. And I have to give our employees a lot of credit and the foundation of a strong culture, which made that transition pretty easy. We also are a native cloud company. We were built in the cloud. We rely on cloud-based tools to do our job. So that made that transition seamless as well. And from a security perspective, which was something a lot of our customers worried about, we already had a zero trust stance, which is something that if you don't understand as an entrepreneur, something that you should maybe look into. This idea that you don't trust any device or service, which allowed us to, again, kind of make that transition quickly to everybody being remote without changing the security profile. And that's super important to us because our customers, particularly our public and highly regulated customers in industries like financial services, expect a high level of resiliency and security at scale no matter what's going on in the background. And in fact, we've sort of built our reputation around the trust that we've engendered with our customers by being up when the rest of the world is, so to speak, down. Another area that I saw us innovate quickly in was putting together products and services or packaging our products and services for new use cases, whether it was offering 20 free licenses to healthcare providers that use us for things like making sure they have the right staff available for certain situations, or crisis management teams. So across many of our customers, PagerDuty is leveraged as the platform to orchestrate information and collaboration for crisis management teams now. And that's something that, we kicked off early in the process of having a weekly crisis leadership team and a daily or biweekly work stream meetings across protecting our people, engaging our customers, ensuring financial business continuity, and also thinking about where our product and our platform needed to go as a result of the changing market environment. So every day is a new day. I mean, you're never going to get bored in this job, and 2020 has certainly really lived up to the reputation of being a year for change. And we just continue to try and be ready for whatever comes.
Yeah, I think that's going to resonate with everybody listening, and certainly with us here. A lot of change over a very short period of time. And it takes some personal attributes to be able to navigate those things. And so it's okay with you. I'd like to maybe switch over, to questions that really have to do with you as individuals, which I think those listening today are probably really tuning in for. That may even be the real reason why they're so eager to hear from both of you. But Jillian, I'll start with you. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the personal experiences that enabled you to get where you are today, and that really kind of guide how you're able to be so effective in your role?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, David. Great question. One of the things I always go back to is I played a lot of sports, competitive sports as a child. I was a big soccer player, and I coach soccer even now with my kids. And I think sports has given me a lot of things that relate to leadership. I didn't realize it at the time, but it really helped me develop some of my skills. It gave me a lot of confidence to be able to work with a group of people and be successful. I also really think it helps with decision making. So when you're in that split moment, especially if you're like playing soccer or in a team sport where you have to make a decision and sort of read what's going on around you and make a quick decision, and then hopefully the others think it's a good decision. You have to die by the sword, live by the sword, and so you learn a lot of that in sports. And I also learned a lot about resiliency. Not everything goes the way you want it to, and so it's not always that you win, but you also learn from that experience. And of course, being on a team teaches you about teamwork. So for me, that was a big part of my development as an individual. And I think it gave me a lot of tools as a leader. So I think back on that. I've been in banking now for 26 years. And the other thing that I've always lived by really in my career is knowing and understanding the customer. For every job that I've had, I've been in retail banking, corporate banking, commercial banking, operations, contact centers, and it's always the customer that's important. It doesn't matter where I've been, but every role, whether it's a big group of customers, a segment, or whether it's a one-to-one and more of a corporate banking type relationship, understanding what the customer needs, who the competitors are, and how you differentiate your whatever you're offering, in that segment or in that customer grouping is so important to be successful, and then do that really, really well. At Tangerine, we get 10,000 plus pieces of feedback per month. And I personally go through the feedback to make sure, we can group it. You can use a lot of analytics and tools to group your feedback and, see what the top drivers are of your feedback and understand what the issues are with customers and what are the things that are missing. And certainly through the COVID period, we felt very strongly that communicating with our customers was really, really important. Jennifer talked about that and the importance of communication. We were doing bi-weekly newsletters. We came out with an ad at Tangerine, ways to tell our customers we were open for business, security, safety important, giving them the tools they need to be successful, understand their financial, situation, really important when you're in kind of this environment. So for me, the customer has always played an important role in whatever job I am in and whatever time it is. I keep that top of mind, and it keeps me, I think, honest in everything that I'm doing and reminding myself that's always got to be paramount in everything that we do. So those have sort of been guiding principles for me, but maybe I'll save that for later in the discussion.
Thank you, Jillian. That makes a lot of sense. And Jennifer, if I'm not mistaken, you also have sports in your background, and I'm just wondering if that played the same role in helping you get to where you are today.
Yeah, I'm also a washed-up athlete. You sound like you're still an athlete, Jillian. I have not played my sport of choice in a long time, but I played golf competitively in high school and college, among a number of other sports, but was always involved in team sports as a kid, and something our parents thought was really important for us because, to your point, you learn more from losing than you do from winning. You often learn more from the big mistakes and the big failures than you do from the big wins and the championships. And there's a lot to be gained in building gritty perseverance and resilience, coming back from injuries, having to play something out differently than what you had planned. In golf, weather is a really big condition or conditional factor that changes. So I did learn a lot about myself too, about like putting your game face on and being in the right frame of mind to concentrate and focus, but still show empathy to the other people that you're playing with. Golf is kind of a weird sport in that you play in a foursome where it's you and three competitors and you're walking along together for the better part of 5-6 hours. So you can't treat each other like enemies during that time. There ends up being a lot of camaraderie, even though you're competing against each other. And one of the lessons I learned from golf is you're also often competing against yourself and your own psyche. And as a woman, like having to have the self-confidence to take shots that maybe were lower probability but the right shot at the time, or backing myself to sign up for tournaments that I didn't maybe think I was qualified for. Like those were all skills that I learned as a competitive golfer. Probably my biggest lesson growing up, though, was that my parents made us do lots of other things. Like my parents didn't believe in specialization. And now I work in an industry where many employees specialize, and it's hard to find leaders that have full stack experience, so to speak. So growing up, we played music. I played the violin for many years and sang, and was also involved in theater and community service. And we weren't allowed to just do one thing. And from a career perspective, that carried on for me because I have done just about every job within the executive team except been a head of finance. so you learn a lot as a general manager by walking in the different shoes of different functions and roles within the business. And I feel like that prepared me very well, not only for being a CEO, but for being a board member and a board director. And so I just really would encourage other women to think about the experience they could get by cross-training in other departments or other functions or other skill sets, build your technical acumen as opposed to just getting good at sort of one thing. And entrepreneurship is a great way to do that because when you're starting your own company, you run every department, you do every job. And if it's something you're thinking about doing in the future, one way to prepare yourself is to work in marketing, work in sales, work in product, work in finance, like get that experience. So you sort of know what's required in each one of those organizations within a business.
Jennifer, another question for you, and I'm just wondering if you can share some of the significant lessons learned, with entrepreneurs who have not yet employed technology to expand their services or products. How critical is starting down the path of really getting more tech-centric for future success?
I think the best companies in the world are tech companies now, whether they started that way or had to pivot to becoming a technology company and embracing technology because consumers demand it. So somewhere in your value chain as an entrepreneur, there's a consumer at the end. Whether you're a B2B company and that consumer is an employee, or you're a B2C company and that consumer is the head of household or a car buyer or whatever the case may be, that consumer is demanding a seamless experience regardless of how they want to engage with you, whether they want to engage in a physical sense or through a mobile app or through a web app. And so technology is going to be part of your business whether you want it to be, just to even support payments, much less the marketing and advertising of your products and services. And so I would say embrace technology early and often, and look for easy to use cloud-centric solutions that don't require you to build competency to manage big hardware environments. One of the things that I've learned from working from home is that I've now had to become expert in a whole bunch of hardware I never had to worry about running. My webcam, the stupid lighting, things, the microphone, all the things that we went through to get ready for this, I took for granted because we had an IT team or a production team that did that at work. Now I have to understand that. If you're building a business around technology, fortunately, most of the technology that you need can be delivered via the cloud, which means you don't have to pay for the cost of ownership of buying and running it yourself in a data center. And likewise, you get the benefit of it gets regularly updated and improved and innovated upon. And most cloud-based companies that serve small business don't require you to sign long contracts. They should allow you to operate month to month, to try the product before you buy it. And so it is getting easier to embrace technology as a startup. And PagerDuty sort of built its reputation being part of the toolkit for startups alongside of AWS or Amazon Web Services, GitHub, and Slack, and others. And slowly we grew into much larger organizations over the last decade. But I would highly recommend thinking about how your consumer wants to leverage technology to engage with you, and then work back from there.
And so on that same vein about thinking through consumers and their behaviors, which may now be a little bit more technology-centric, Jillian, with the surge in e-commerce and digital banking platforms, can you talk a little bit about how businesses can leverage digital banking at Scotia to do business?
Yeah, certainly. Great question. So on the business side, there's been a big uptick on usage on the digital side. And I think that it's, as Jennifer said earlier, I think what would have taken 5 years has happened in sort of 90 days. And I think people managing remotely their money, looking at their balances, doing transfers, paying people, on the business side, there was still a lot of checks in circulation. And there's a lot of great tools at Scotia. We have Scotia Connect, which is in a mobile app, and it allows you obviously to monitor balances, which I think people were doing quite frequently already. But moving money around, doing transfers both internationally and in Canada, digitally, sending people that through digital mechanisms, those are up. Like we're seeing it at the Tangerine on the personal level, that's up like 30%, moving money around and transferring money. The check circulation is obviously coming way down. Wires and money transfers are up in big ways for payables. And I really think people, taking the time to understand the tools that are available is really important. At Tangerine, on the personal side, we have tools that we've built, money management tools, which we had built before COVID, which actually are simple ways, I call it small A advice, where you can go in and use tools to build financial plans, and you can use the tools that we have to, if you want to round up your coffee purchases to the next $5 and put that into a savings account, we have that. Or if you want to link it to other ways to save money for a vacation, we've got lots of ways to track your spending and tools that are through AI to help you to do forced savings type plans through this small A advice. So lots more of this is going to come and help people with their financial planning. And, I think that's exciting. And I think that that's something people want. Virtual advisors, we're seeing that a lot more on the small business and the business side, where you can talk to people in these sort of mediums and get advice. So I think Scotia and Tangerine have lots of great tools that were there, but are actually gone up exponentially through this period, and you'll only see that, I think, go up in greater ways.
Powerful. So Jennifer, earlier on in our conversation, you talked about how your company was able to shift to 100% work remote. And one of the questions I had was around how has that changed your business operations for the better? It was a forced change. Maybe it was things that you were thinking about, but certainly many of the business leaders I speak to were quite surprised by the level of productivity that was maintained and maybe even enhanced a bit as that shift to home took place. But from an operations perspective, how else has it changed your business?
Well, I think as an executive and someone who used to travel 50% of my time, I'm traveling 0% of my time, which means I got a lot of time back that was spent sitting in airports, sitting on planes, et cetera, and commuting, right? And so I'm getting more done, and I think most of my employees would say the same is true. Also, I think we all have been pleasantly surprised by how much business can get done over video. I mean, look at us. I would have flown to Toronto, that would have been a 5-hour flight there, 5-hour flight back, couple hours at the airport, et cetera, for this session. And we can do this over video and convey, much of the same empathy and experience and messaging that we would have if we had done it in person. So I think there's just purely a lot of increased productivity as a result of getting that inconsequential time back. When you add it back up, it is quite consequential. It's a lot of time that you were spending in transit. And I'm able to apply that time to really invest in customers. So now I can see 6, 7 customers in the time I would have been able to see one, right? And I can see them. Like I'm seeing you. I found some of my one-on-one discussions with some of our customer executives have been some of the best discussions that we've had because they're uninterrupted. There aren't a bunch of people trying to get in that meeting with you. You actually can really engage and get through a strategic discussion or an agreement. And I think for the company, what we found is there's empathy that you get from being cameras up. And when I do a town hall now, I can see all of my employees. Whereas before I would stand in one room and I could see a couple hundred in the room, but we would be blasting to, offices everywhere. Now I can scroll through the gallery and see everybody's faces, and I can get a sense of sort of how they're feeling, are they engaged, etc. The use of chat in video has really helped us to have a couple of conversations going on at the same time, or get quick access to information when we need it. And so I think there's a lot to be said for working remote. On the flip side, I would say that we've all had to learn how to create boundaries in our homes between work, because you could literally just Zoom from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to bed. Sit in this chair. I'm ergonomically becoming perfectly fit to the chair in my home office because I spend so much time in it. In fact, I'm standing up right now. I have an adjustable desk. So not sitting all day was a big thing, because in the office, you're getting up and you're moving between rooms and you're moving around. But at home, you're sitting in front of that camera the entire time. And I think the video fatigue is real. We've also had to come up with coping mechanisms like doing one-on-ones walking. So we'll turn off the Zoom, get on the phone and walk together, like simultaneously, but not in the same place, in order to have a one-on-one meeting or a customer meeting. And making, really just thinking through how you spend your time, I think has been really important. So I think there's a lot to be gained from this tremendous experiment that we are experiencing. On the flip side, what we don't know is, what does it all look like when we're not 100% remote and when it's hybrid? When you have some people who need to be in an office because that's actually a more productive working environment than their home. And we have a lot of employees that are in small apartments with multiple roommates, and they're not designed physically for multiple people, videoing from one place. And so those folks are desperate to be back in an office. What will that look like when you're socially distanced in an office with a mask on and you can't see so much facial expression, and some of your teams are dialing in from home? We don't know. We see a lot of employees that are deciding they want to live somewhere else as opposed to the urban center where, they've historically been employed. And so we're open-minded to that. We've told our employees they do not need to come back into the office prior to the end of our financial year, which is January 2021. So that gives us time to sort of figure out what this hybrid model is going to look like. But frankly, I think we all have a lot to learn, and some of the great lessons that we gain from productivity will come with us. And likewise, I think everybody's excited to see their colleagues again, in person. I think that will be nice if and when it happens.
Okay, I'm going to finish it off now with a question for each of you. And Jillian, I'm going to start with you. But what advice would you give women entrepreneurs that are leading tech companies in order to future-proof their business? What should they be thinking about?
Well, I think we've covered a lot of great ground during this discussion, and some of the things that I think people need to think about, we've touched on. I think pivoting the business to be more e-commerce, digital is an obvious, and that's come up a number of times. And I'm seeing some great success stories where, people are figuring that out, and they're using the online, the Instagram, and different mediums to sell their products, and really, especially those who have storefronts. So I think there's a lot of great examples of where people and entrepreneurs have been able to do that pivot, but that's, I think, very critical. I think the point about the re-entry and getting people back into the office or back to work, being very thoughtful about how to do that. I think culture is really important, and I think a lot of companies have done a great job. Safety and well-being of our employee base is so important, and so doing that in the right way, getting the right culture to be able to do that is both the safety of your employees, of course, that's paramount, and then also your customer if you have a direct model. But I think it's really important to think about that re-entry in a very thoughtful way, and understanding what the rules are with the governments and where you live and the environment you're in. I think that's another really important one, and with your employee base. Understanding, your financial position is always important. I'm a banker, so, I have to talk about that. Understanding your cash flow and understanding, what that means and where the revenue is going to come from and where the expenses are and how to manage that. I always think that's an important thing. And banks are here to help with that, Scotiabank in particular. that's certainly our program for the female entrepreneurs to be there. Not just, we're here to be there through the tougher times and provide that advice and give that information and provide whatever we can, the tools and the support to be successful during this period. Because I think coming out of this, I think, there's an expression, you never want to let a good crisis go to waste. And, the more we can learn from this, the more we can grow. We're all very resilient, and I think that's what we're all learning. And so I think there's some, there will be some bright spots coming out of the other side of this as well.
Jennifer, what advice would you give women entrepreneurs leading tech companies in order to future-proof their businesses?
Well, my dad used to say you're only as good as the team you're surrounded by, and so much about our ability to scale as entrepreneurs and leaders is surrounding ourselves with the right people whose skill sets complement our own, who are not afraid to hold us accountable and challenge us. And so I think it starts with the people. I certainly wouldn't be successful if it weren't for the team around me. I think choose your partners wisely. That would be my first piece of advice. The second thing is really think about the market that you're going after. Choose the market that is very large, total addressable market, preferably one that's a little early but not too early, meaning there's room for you to grow into that market. Don't be afraid of competition. Competition makes you better, but make sure you've chosen a market where there's room for multiple winners. And then lastly, it is all about, saving the best for last. It is the customer. At the end of the day, if you are not solving a meaningful big problem for that customer in an innovative, easy to use or acquire way, then you're not going to be successful in this day and age, because consumers are super fickle, and so are business customers. They want what they want, and they want it the way they want it, and it needs to be perfect every time. And technology can enable you to deliver that, and so much of what we do nowadays can be instrumented and monitored and managed. But at the end of the day, if your value proposition to the customer is not meaningful to them, if you don't act in a way that demonstrates over and over again that you're committed to earning their trust, you're not going to be successful. And then, I'll just add one other thing, which is we have an opportunity as female leaders to build a more inclusive, equitable world than the one we were born into. And we've learned a lot, as we've become leaders on what we should and shouldn't be doing. And I think there's an opportunity to design businesses to be inclusive and equitable from the get-go, so that you don't have to fix them forward later on in their lives. So thinking about how you build a diverse and inclusive business from the very beginning, and what kinds of partners you need, and how you hold those partners accountable to helping you do that is really important.
Thank you. That was great. Appreciate both of you giving your time and sharing your advice today. Jillian, thank you. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us today.